Hello and welcome to Intermission at Folk Night at the Registry. I'm Jan Vanderhorst, and now we get to spend a few minutes with tonight's guest, Lynn Miles. Welcome to Folk Night.
Thank you, Jan. It's lovely to be here.
Now you've got enough songs to do a couple of albums, but let's talk about the last album, Tumbleweedy World. It was had more of a bluegrass feel to it, and I understand that you've now got a bluegrass band called the Tumbleweeds that
I do.
that back you up for gigs that are mainly from that kind of album.
Yes, I do. And most of my life I've tried to write bluegrass songs because I love the songwriting of bluegrass. It's incredibly simple. I especially love the high lonesome stuff. It's really sad and simple and sparse, and I also love all the instrumentation around bluegrass. I love the dobro and the mandolin. And so I always used to say when I grow up I'm going to be a bluegrass artist. I'm not grown up yet, so I'm not an official bluegrass artist, and I would never put myself into that category because I just think they're so awesome. The bluegrass artists, they're so great. But I wanted to sort of dip my toe in it. So that's what I did, and I have this little bluegrass band, and we did this record, and there are no effects on it. It was like straight live off the floor, a lot of it, and kind of bluegrassy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now you've understand you've got enough songs for like a couple of albums, but you're sort of unsure as to whether you're going to release another album.
How
again.
many albums does one person need?
Well,
I mean, I have 16. I could say, okay, well, maybe I'll aim for 20. I do. I have some things that I've recorded, but the landscape has changed so much. Mm-hmm. So to put a record out, first of all, you need to do crowdfunding at this point because there really aren't any record deals anymore that pay any money, and enough to record an album. And I like using a studio that has analog, so that can be expensive and but worth it. And so, you have to raise a certain amount of money, and then people really aren't buying CDs so much anymore. My demographic does more than anybody else, I think,
right.
But it's really has gone down a lot because there are no CD players in cars anymore, right?
I know that.
So I have a CD player in my car, but I need to sell my car. What am I going to do if there's no CD player? Anyway, so yeah, it's an interesting time, and I want to put my music out there. But I also need to make a living at the same time because that's how I've survived all these years. So I haven't really figured it out yet, but I will.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you're not the only artist who's trying to figure it out these days.
Yeah.
I understand that for concerts where there's a land acknowledgement at the beginning, you donate a portion of the proceeds to a group that works with Indigenous issues and people.
Yeah, I started feeling that a land acknowledgement, as good as it is, and it's a one step forward, it didn't feel like enough to me to be standing there and have a person do that, and then I just go on and continue with my life. So I wanted to do something that meant something. So it's not a huge amount of money, but I take a portion of what I make at the venue, and I try to find a local agency that works with Indigenous people. And if not, then I give to missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, or residential school.
Mm-hmm. And one of your other songs, "What If You Were a Refugee," was it the proceeds of downloads of your song are going to agencies that help refugees.
Yes.
When did you first start doing that?
Well, the first time I think a lot of people realized, well, this was during the Syrian refugee crisis at the height of it. It's just still going on, of course. But when the little boy, when the body washed up on the beach and everybody saw it, and I think it sort of shook the world a little bit in our conscious. And I just thought, okay, well, I need to write a song. So I wrote that song, and then I thought, okay, well, if I could make something good out of this, I will try to do that. I was trying to get some other artists to do kind of like a We Are the World. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't get anybody. Couldn't get it off the ground.
Okay.
But
for a number of years, you've been doing some producing, whether it's the Lynn's album you did with Lynn Hansen, you co-produced Catherine Wheatley's album, and an album of female singer-songwriters from the Yukon. But you're still doing some producing recently.
Yeah, I just produced a record for Melwood Cutlery, who's a great Canadian songwriter. Kind of a recluse, lives in a farmhouse, and he has a grand piano in his kitchen. and lots of books, and he just writes these amazing songs. So we've been working on that for a couple of years, and it should be out before Christmas. And then also with Ellen Hamilton from Night Sun. She did a solo project, which has beautiful songs. She's such a great songwriter.
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking of songwriting, you were involved in a project with Folk Alliance International where they hooked up songwriters, and they had from different parts of the world, and they wrote remotely.
Yes.
And you were hooked up with Eliza Gilkison.
Yeah, during the pandemic, I got hooked up with Eliza, and we're friends. I was playing in Three Women in the Truth for a little while with Mary Gaucher and Eliza, so we knew each other, and so I had an idea for a song, so I think I played banjo on that song, and I'm not a banjo player, but I pretend to be one sometimes. So I played banjo, and she's in her living room in Taos, New Mexico, playing her guitar. And I don't know how technology works, Jan. Don't ask me how to. Somebody pieced some stuff together, and we made it work. And we sang harmony with each other, and it was very strange. But it turned out I like the song very much.
All right. Yeah, and of course it's not the first time you've co-written with somebody, but
Yeah.
This is a little different circumstance.
Yeah. Plus Eliza's, she's one of the great songwriters. So I was thrilled to be a part of that for sure.
And you've been doing some teaching of songwriting. What is that like to impart your wisdom, what you've learned over the years onto young songwriters?
I love it. It's kind of my favorite thing to do these days. I love playing shows, but I love teaching it equally as much. And you can just see the light come on in a person's eyes when there are people of all ages. There are people who've been told that they shouldn't sing, or they shouldn't, or they're in a job where they don't have time to write, and now they're 65 and they finally get to write. So how do I write? And you show them little things to do, to try, and they come up with something, and it's so exciting for them. And I like being a part of that.
Yeah. So this has been at songwriting camps?
Yeah, I was a songwriting mentor at the Banff Center a couple times, and I taught at Carleton University as well in Ottawa. And so now I just did the New England Songwriters Retreat with Ellis Paul and Laurie McAllister, and I did one in Halifax, and I'm doing one in Sault Ste. Marie next week.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So behind you is a piano, which you don't usually carry in your car. What kind of a treat is it to be doing a gig with a piano?
When I was a kid, we didn't have any money, so we couldn't have a piano, and I couldn't have lessons. But whenever I would see a piano, my heart would break, and I really, really wanted to play the piano. And so we finally got my grandmother's piano, and we moved it into our basement. And I finally got to take some lessons. And since then, I've been in love with the piano. But it's, you can't really tour with the piano. And I'm not a big fan of electronic keyboards. They don't feel the same. So whenever there's a piano, especially a beautiful grand piano, Yamaha right here, I get very excited that I get to play it, because they're so beautiful. It's like having a giant tree on stage with you,
Right.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it.
So since the end of the pandemic and things sort of opened up again, have you reevaluated how you tour and how much you tour?
Yeah, it made me realize how ridiculous my lifestyle was, for sure, when I had to stay home for 4 months straight. Yeah. And I had to learn how to cook food and have food in my fridge. That whole thing. I had to grow up a bit. And I'm 65 now, so touring is harder. I was actually talking to Garnet Rogers last night about this. It just gets harder. Your body doesn't do the things it used to do. I used to be able to, I would drive for 5 hours, do a sound check, play a show, and then drive home for 5 hours. Yeah. I used to do that stuff. I can't do that anymore. No. So that changes how you tour. And I really don't want to go out for as long as I used to go out. So now I'm trying to do sort of weekends or a week at the most. And it's been working so far. Yeah.
So during the pandemic, did you get into creating online content?
Yeah, I did. I sort of did in the bleak midwinter shows in January, and January is usually a month when musicians don't do very much work because we've just gone through Christmas. The weather's horrible. So that was pretty great, actually. I got to just sit in my living room, as I was telling your crew here, no pants on, just a shiny shirt,
Mm-hmm.
and play all my songs for people, and it kept me alive. Really,
Yeah.
it paid my rent and kept me going. So that was really fun. Although it's hard to do a Zoom concert
Yeah.
because you don't hear the applause.
Right.
So I found an applause app on my phone, and whenever I finished a song, I would shake it, and it would sound like a huge crowd cheering for me.
Okay.
So that's how I got through it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there you'll have a good crowd tonight
Oh, I'm looking forward to
to
it.
applaud every song that you do. Thank you so much for your time, and hope to see you the next time that you're in the area.
Jen, thank you for supporting me for years and years and years.
You're welcome.
I'm so appreciative of it.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. Now back to the second half of the show.